Hello Book Summareez crew. Today we are reading Manor Farm by George Orwell. So let's begin. The animals of Manor Farm lived lives dictated by the whims of Mr. Jones, their often inebriated and perpetually neglectful owner. Their existence was one of relentless labor, meager rations, and the ever-present threat of the knacker's yard. Yet, within this atmosphere of quiet desperation, a spark of hope began to flicker, fueled by the pronouncements of an aged boor named Old Major. Old Major, a prize-winning middle white, commanded respect throughout the farm. He possessed a wisdom gleaned from years of observing the world from his straw-filled pen. One evening, under the weak glow of a lantern hanging in the cavernous barn, Old Major called a meeting, a gathering that would forever alter the course of life on Manor Farm. The animals assembled, a diverse collection of creatures drawn together by a shared sense of unease. There were the loyal cart horses, Boxer and Clover, their vast bodies weary from years of pulling plows and hauling loads. Clover, a stout motherly mare, bore the marks of countless foals and a lifetime of hard work. Boxer, a giant of a horse, possessed immense strength but lacked keen intellect, his gentle nature evident in his perpetually furrowed brow. Then there were the dogs, Bluebell, Jessie, and Pincher, their watchful eyes constantly scanning the surroundings. Muriel, the wise old goat, settled in, ready to lend her sharp wit to the proceedings. Benjamin, the cynical donkey, the oldest animal on the farm, shuffled in with his usual air of pessimism, muttering under his breath about the futility of hope. Even Molly, the vain and frivolous mare, her white coat gleaming and red ribbons adorning her mane, deigned to attend, drawn by the promise of something novel. As the animals settled, Old Major surveyed them from his raised platform, his eyes gleaming with conviction. "Comrades," he began, his voice a low rumble that filled the barn, "I have summoned you here tonight to share a dream, a vision that has haunted me in my sleep and illuminated a truth I can no longer ignore. I feel my time is short, and before I depart this earth, I must impart to you the wisdom I have gained during my long and arduous life." He paused, drawing a deep breath. "Comrades, what is the nature of our existence? Let us not deceive ourselves. Our lives are miserable, laborious, and short. From the moment we are born, we are allotted just enough food to keep breath in our bodies, and those of us capable of it are forced to work until our strength fails. And the instant our usefulness comes to an end, we are slaughtered with hideous cruelty. No animal in England knows the meaning of happiness or leisure after they are a year old. No animal in England is free. The life of an animal is misery and slavery. That is the plain truth." A wave of mournful murmurs swept through the barn as the animals considered the bleakness of their reality. Old Major raised his head, his voice growing stronger. "But is this simply part of the order of nature? Is it because this land of ours is so poor that it cannot afford a decent life to those who dwell upon it? No, comrades, 1,000 times no. The soil of England is fertile, its climate is good, it is capable of affording food in abundance to an enormously greater number of animals than now inhabit it. This single farm of ours could support a dozen horses, 20 cows, hundreds of sheep, and all of them living in a comfort and a dignity that are now almost beyond our imagining. Why, then, do we continue in this miserable condition? Because nearly the whole of the produce of our labor is stolen from us by human beings. There, comrades, is the answer to all our problems. It is summed up in a single word: man. Man is the only real enemy we have. Remove man from the scene, and the root cause of hunger and overwork is abolished forever." His words struck a chord deep within the animals, igniting a spark of resentment against their human oppressor. Old Major continued, his voice resonating with righteous anger. "Man is the only creature that consumes without producing. He does not give milk, He does not lay eggs, he is too weak to pull the plow, he cannot run fast enough to catch rabbits. Yet he is lord of all the animals. He sets them to work. He gives back to them the bare minimum that will prevent them from starving, and the rest he keeps for himself. Our labor tills the soil, our dung fertilizes it, and yet there is not one of us that owns more than his bare skin. You cows that I see before me, how many thousands of gallons of milk have you given during this last year? And what has happened to that milk which should have been breeding up sturdy calves? Every drop of it has gone down the throats of our enemies. And you hens, how many eggs have you laid in this last year, and how many of those eggs ever hatched into chickens? The rest have all gone to market to bring in money for Jones and his men. And you, Clover, where are those 4 foals you bore, who should have been the support and pleasure of your old age? Each was sold at a year old. You will never see one of them again. In return for your 4 confinements and all your labor in the fields, what have you ever had except your bare rations and a stall? He paused, his gaze sweeping across the assembly. And even the miserable lives we lead are not allowed to reach their natural span. For myself, I do not grumble, for I am one of the lucky ones. I am 12 years old and have had over 400 children. Such is the natural life of a pig, but no animal escapes the cruel knife in the end. You young porkers who are sitting in front of me, every one of you will scream your lives out at the block within a year. To that horror we all must come. Cows, pigs, hens, sheep, everyone. Even the horses and the dogs have no better fate. You, boxer, the very day that those great muscles of yours lose their power, Jones will sell you to the knacker, who will cut your throat and boil you down for the foxhounds. As for the dogs, when they grow old and toothless, Jones ties a brick round their necks and drowns them in the nearest pond. A chilling silence fell over the barn as the animals contemplated their grim destinies. Old Major, sensing their despair, rallied them with a renewed sense of urgency. Is it not crystal clear, then, comrades, that all the evils of this life of ours spring from the tyranny of human beings? Only get rid of man, and the produce of our labor would be our own. Almost overnight we could become rich and free. What then must we do? Why work night and day, body and soul, for the overthrow of the human race? That is my message to you, comrades. Rebellion. I do not know when that rebellion will come. It might be in a week or in 100 years, but I know, as surely as I see this straw beneath my feet, that sooner or later justice will be done. Fix your eyes on that, comrades, throughout the short remainder of your lives. And above all, pass on this message of mine to those who come after you, so that future generations shall carry on the struggle until it is victorious. He leaned forward, his voice taking on a fervent intensity. And remember, comrades, your resolution must never falter. No argument must lead you astray. Never listen when they tell you that man and the animals have a common interest, that the prosperity of the one is the prosperity of the others. It is all lies. Man serves the interests of no creature except himself. And among us animals let there be perfect unity, perfect comradeship in the struggle. All men are enemies. All animals are comrades. A sudden commotion broke out in the barn. 4 large rats had crept out of their holes and were sitting on their hindquarters, listening intently to old Major's speech. The dogs, catching sight of the intruders, lunged forward with fierce barks, sending the rats scurrying back to their burrows. Old Major raised a trotter for silence. Comrades, he said, here is a point that must be settled. The wild creatures, such as rats and rabbits, are they our friends or our enemies? Let us put it to the vote. I propose this question to the meeting. Are rats comrades? The vote was taken at once, and it was agreed by an overwhelming majority that rats were comrades. Only 4 dissented, the 3 dogs and the cat, who was later discovered to have voted on both sides. Major, satisfied with the outcome, continued. I have little more to say. I merely repeat, Remember always your duty of enmity towards man and all his ways. Whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. Whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. And remember also that in fighting against man, we must not come to resemble him. Even when you have conquered him, do not adopt his vices. No animal must ever live in a house, or sleep in a bed, or wear clothes, or drink alcohol, or smoke tobacco, or touch money, or engage in trade. All the habits of man are evil, and above all, no animal must ever tyrannize over his own kind. Weak or strong, clever or simple, we are all brothers. No animal must ever kill any other animal. All animals are equal. His voice softened as he spoke of a memory long past. And now, comrades, I will tell you about my dream of last night. I cannot describe that dream to you fully. It was a dream of the earth as it will be when man has vanished. But it reminded me of something that I had long forgotten. Many years ago, when I was a little piglet, my mother and the other sows used to sing an old song of which they knew only the tune and the first 3 words. I had known that tune in my infancy, but it had long since passed out of my mind. Last night, however, it came back to me in my dream. And what is more, the words of the song also came back, words, I am certain, which were sung by the animals of long ago and have been lost to memory for generations. I will sing you that song now, comrades. I am old and my voice is hoarse, but when I have taught you the tune, you can sing it better for yourselves. It is called Beasts of England. Old Major cleared his throat and began to sing. As he had said, his voice was hoarse, but he sang well enough, and it was a stirring tune, something between Clementine and La Cucaracha. The words spoke of a golden future where animals were free, where whips would crack no more, and the riches of the earth would be shared by all. Beasts of England, beasts of Ireland, beasts of every land and clime, hearken to my joyful tidings of the golden future time. Soon or late the day is coming. Tyrant man shall be o'erthrown, and the fruitful fields of England shall be trod by beasts alone. Rings shall vanish from our noses, in the harness from our back. Bit and spur shall rust forever. Cruel whips no more shall crack. Riches more than mind can picture. Wheat and barley, oats and hay, clover, beans, and mangel wurzels shall be ours upon that day. Bright will shine the fields of England. Purer shall its waters be. Sweeter yet shall blow its breezes on the day that sets us free. For that day we all must labor, though we die before it break. Cows and horses, geese and turkeys, all must toil for freedom's sake. The animals listened, their hearts swelling with hope and revolutionary fervor. As Old Major sang, their voices joined in, growing louder and more impassioned with each verse. The barn shook with the sound of their collective yearning for freedom, their voices carrying the promise of a new world, a world free from the tyranny of man. Again and again they sang the song until most of the animals knew it by heart. The meeting ended, and the animals dispersed, carrying the seed of rebellion in their hearts. Old Major's words had ignited a flame that would soon engulf Manor Farm, transforming their lives forever. The revolution was coming, and the animals were ready. A few days later, Old Major passed away peacefully in his sleep. His death, though mourned, only served to strengthen the animals' resolve. The pigs, being the most intelligent of the animals, took it upon themselves to prepare for the coming rebellion. Among the pigs, 2 emerged as leaders, Snowball and Napoleon. Snowball, a young, vivacious boar, was a brilliant orator and strategist. He was quick-witted, inventive, and passionate about improving the lives of the animals. He developed elaborate plans for modernization and education, believing that knowledge was the key to their liberation. Napoleon, on the other hand, was a large, fierce-looking boar, not much of a talker, but with a reputation for getting his own way. He was cunning, ambitious, and more interested in power than in grand ideas. He preferred to work behind the scenes, quietly consolidating his influence. Together, Snowball and Napoleon elaborated old Major's teachings into a complete system of thought, which they called animalism. They held secret meetings in the barn, explaining the principles of animalism to the other animals and preparing them for the inevitable revolt. The opportunity arose sooner than they expected. Mr. Jones, once a prosperous farmer, had fallen on hard times. He drank heavily, neglected the farm, and often forgot to feed the animals. One day, after a particularly heavy drinking binge, Mr. Jones failed to return from town. The farm hands, equally drunk and irresponsible, also neglected their duties. The animals, driven to desperation by hunger, broke into the store shed in search of food. Mr. Jones and his men, roused by the commotion, rushed to the scene with whips in hand. But the animals, emboldened by their shared hunger and the teachings of animalism, turned on their oppressors. They attacked Mr. Jones and his men with a ferocity born of years of pent-up resentment. The humans, taken by surprise, were quickly overwhelmed and driven off the farm. The animals, in a frenzy of excitement, celebrated their newfound freedom. They burned the whips, harnesses, and other instruments of their oppression. They feasted on the food they had seized from the store shed, their hearts filled with joy and a sense of liberation. Snowball, ever the visionary, renamed Manor Farm Animal Farm, symbolizing their break from the past and their commitment to a new future. He also wrote the 7 commandments of animalism on the side of the barn, the guiding principles of their new society. The animals committed the commandments to memory, believing they would ensure equality and prevent any animal from oppressing another. In the days that followed, Animal Farm flourished. The animals worked harder than ever before, but now they were working for themselves, not for Mr. Jones. They harvested the fields, milked the cows, and tended to the chickens, sharing the fruits of their labor equally. Snowball organized committees for various tasks, teaching the animals to read and write. He envisioned a farm where all animals were educated and empowered. Napoleon, however, showed little interest in